Africa may have broken free from European empires on paper, but here's the truth that no one wants to admit. Africa has never truly been free. Because while the British Empire may have left, a new empire stepped in. One built not on armies and guns, but on debt, contracts and financial chains. And today, Africa's future doesn't belong fully to Africans, it's quietly being mortgaged away to China. Now let's look back. For over a century, Africa was carved up like a pie by European empires. The British, the French, Portuguese and even the Belgians. They drained Africa of its raw materials like gold, diamonds, oil and rubber. They built railways and ports, not for Africans, but to extract wealth faster. Independence movements in the mid-20th century promised freedom. Flags changed, leaders changed, and constitutions were rewritten. But the global power game didn't end, it simply evolved. Enter China. In the 21st century, China positioned itself as Africa's ally. Billions of dollars in loans for infrastructure, railways in Kenya, ports in Tanzania, power plants, highways, even government buildings. But here's the catch. They weren't gifts, they were loans. And many African nations can't repay them. Which means when the bills come due, China gains leverage, taking control of ports, resources and political loyalty. It's a strategy often called debt-trapped diplomacy. Instead of soldiers and flags, it's contracts and interest rates. The chains are invisible, but just as real. The story of Africa has always been about dependence. First dependence on European empires who stole its resources, now dependence on Chinese money to build basic infrastructure. And here's the cruel twist. Without those roads, ports and power plants, African economies struggle. But by taking the money, they fall deeper into debt and into Beijing's sphere of influence. In other words, Africa is trapped in a cycle, needing foreign investment to grow, but that very investment ensuring they never fully control their own future. And it's not just about money, it's about power. China uses its financial grip to demand political loyalty. Nations indebted to China often vote in line with Beijing at the UN. African leaders who rely on Chinese-backed projects rarely criticize China's human rights abuses or foreign policy. And because China builds critical infrastructure like airports, telecom networks, even parliaments, many African governments are deeply entangled that they can't risk upsetting Beijing. It's the same old empire playbook, just updated for the 21st century. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Africa may be politically independent, but economically, strategically, it's still trapped. First, the British Empire dictated its future. Now, financial dependency on China shapes its path. True freedom isn't about raising a flag. It's about controlling your own destiny, your resources, your infrastructure, and your economy. And until Africa breaks free of these cycles of dependency, it will remain chained, not by armies, but by debt and foreign influence. So the real question isn't when Africa will be free. The real question is, will Africa ever be allowed to be free? Or will every empire, old and new, always find a way to tighten the leash, making sure Africa remains the richest continent in resources, but the poorest in power?